Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now you join me today back in the outdoors on a brutally hot summer's day in southern England. I don't know what's going on with the weather at the moment, but we're in sort of 35 plus degree temperatures here in the UK, which is a little bit unusual for us, so I'm enjoying dressing down a bit. Apologise for the sunglasses, it's just to stop me being dazzled. Now today I'd like to talk about how the way you dress affects the service that you receive from people you encounter in life, be it in retail or in the service provision industry. And I've got a great example for you from somebody I spoke to the other day. Now, about a week ago, I was up in Bristol, my nearest large city, and I was attending a Red Bar Watch Club event. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Red Bar, it is a free members group of watch enthusiasts who meet occasionally, and in these meetings, which are normally at sort of pubs and other events, people bring along their wristwatch collection for others to enjoy, to look at, to touch, to talk about. It's really a gathering of aficionados who show off each other's watches, and it's just an opportunity to speak with like-minded individuals, because it's quite hard to gather together in groups with things like wristwatches. You know, how do you know that people enjoy that hobby? So by going to a Red Bar event, you know for sure that the other people share your interests. If you're interested in Red Bar, go onto the internet, type in Red Bar and find the local event to you. There are quite a few in the UK now, generally centred around the larger cities, and for me Bristol is only about 20-25 miles from my home, but I know people travel from much further afield to go to those meetings. It's great to attend and find other aficionados. So on Saturday night I was up in the city and I got talking to a gentleman called Steve. Now I'm sure Steve won't mind me sharing this story because he's posted about it on social media, and we had a chat about it on Saturday night. And it's a classic example of how the way that you dress impacts the impression and the resulting service that you achieve from people that you encounter in life. So Steve is a watch fan, and on Saturday night when I met him, he was wearing an absolutely glorious Rolex Oyster Perpetual 41mm watch in that amazing Tiffany turquoise blue dial. Now discontinued and already a classic. You know, people will trample their grandmothers to get one of these if they could. But Steve bought his from a Rolex authorized dealer a year or so ago at retail price. Simple as that, before they were discontinued. Beautiful watch. He tells me that, and this is the story that I'm relaying to you. A little while before this, he works for a large parcel delivery company, a well-known parcel delivery company, drives the big trucks, and he was in Bristol, the city, as I say, not far from where I live, and he's making a delivery. And he has a lunch break, so in his lunch break he's walking around a large shopping centre in the middle of that city. And in that shopping centre there is a watch store. I'm not going to name them, that would be unfair, but it's a large national chain, the biggest chain in the United Kingdom, and they have a Rolex authorised dealers area within that store. And I've been in there many times. They have a very good collection of watches generally on display. As we know, exhibition only, you can't buy them, but you can go in, you can have a look at them, you can try them on. That's the whole idea. It's to keep people interested in the brand, even though they will not be able to buy a watch which is on display. So he goes in there and he's wearing his uniform, so the uniform which goes with his job. But he's also wearing a relatively almost brand new Rolex Sea Dweller. Beautiful watch. I'm wearing a Submariner today, but it's like the big brother of the Submariner, big old chunky watch. And Steve was a big man, you know, way over 6 foot, and so that watch looked entirely wonderful and proportionate on his wrist. Anyway, he goes into this Rolex store on his break, wearing his Sea Dweller, and he looks at a number of the beautiful watches on display. He catches the eye of a sales agent and says, could I try on one of these? Now, I don't know which watch it was, I forgot over the passing of time since we had that chat, but it was a well-known, Rolex sports watch. And the sales agent weighs up our man Steve looks at the way he's dressed and says, "No, I'm sorry, sir, they're not available to be tried on at the moment." Now, Steve walks away feeling rather miffed, understandably so, because, when we think about it, the only reason why those watches are on display is so that people can look at them, handle them, try them on, and then make a decision, this is a watch I may like to purchase, and then express a preference at that store. We won't go into the arguments whether they'll be able to sell you that watch because of the supply-demand situation, but that's the goal of having watches for exhibition only. So the public can look at them, handle them, try them on, and then express an interest. So Steve is sent packing, basically, and he walks away thinking, they've said that because of the way I'm dressed. I look like a parcel delivery guy. That's his job, right? But they've not permitted him to try on a watch because of the way he looks. And he's very miffed. So understandably, he goes home and, later that day, taps out an email to the local, or to that watch store saying, "I went into your store and I wasn't happy about the service I received." The pleasing end to this story comes where, he receives very in short order, I believe it was an email back from the manager, the regional manager of that particular store brand. They expressed their sorrow that he felt dissatisfied as a potential customer. He'd bought his previous watches from that particular brand as well, so he's an existing customer, and they're saddened that he had this service. They apologise, and they say that they will ensure that the sales agent is spoken to. A couple of days later, he receives a personal phone call from that sales agent who basically prostrates themselves to him over the phone, apologises for the way that he was dealt with. They acknowledge that they shouldn't have treated him in that way, and he accepted their apology. So yes, it's a pleasing satisfaction that Steve got the apology that he deserved from the staff in that store, and he felt satisfied with that. So what can we learn from this experience as people who like to be intentionally well dressed? Well, I think Steve's story tells us that if you want to engage superior service, or at least a very acceptable level of service from a service level business, like even retail, where a sales agent is in control of the situation, as they are in this Rolex authorized dealer. What they've done here in this particular instance is they've looked at Steve and they've drawn an inference about the way he's dressed. They see him wearing this brand uniform of the company he works for, and they've made an assumption that he's not the sort of person who would have sufficient money to purchase their product, and hence they've given him a reduced service based on his appearance. Now, of course, this is fundamentally wrong. Steve might be a multi-millionaire. All right, nobody knows what Steve's financial situation is. The outward appearance of one's clothing is merely a window into the person that you're encountering. But as I've said so many times on this channel, that window is what we have control over. All right, so we can't convey to people that we've got sufficient money to buy their products in any other way than the visual appearance that we present to individuals. Now, this is, given this is a situation unusual where you're trying to get a retailer to engage with you, but you can take this situation and apply it to an interview for a job, or going into any situation where you're trying to make a good impression on the people that you will meet. If you dress in a fashion that will allow people to draw negative influence, so they will think this person would not represent our brand well if we employed him because he doesn't dress very well. Or in this situation where you want to buy a luxury item, a very expensive item, the people in the retail situation, they're thinking, this guy looks like he works in a profession in which generally speaking, the salary wouldn't permit an individual to spend 20, 30, 40,000 pounds on a wristwatch, so we will treat him differently than somebody else. Now, the juxtaposition here is that I go into that shop very regularly. All right, I go into that shop when I'm working in the city because I'm interested in watches, and they always have nice watches on display. The last time I went into that store, a little bit earlier in the year, they had a lovely display of GMT Master wristwatches. So they had the new, at that time, it was the left-hand drive green bezel GMT Master 2. And they had a number of other GMT Masters too as well. And I went in and I was wearing a jacket and a shirt. I wasn't wearing a tie on that particular day, but I was dressed smartly in a fashion where you can't really draw an inference about my background. You can't tell if I've got a really good job. You can't tell if I'm just somebody who likes to dress well. I am kind of neutral to the salesman. But I walk in and the treatment I get is a polar opposite to what Steve received. Because I was wearing a blazer, I think it was at the time, and a white shirt, a pair of chinos, you know, kind of casual really, but a little bit higher dressed than pretty much everybody else in the street, because as we know, people tend to dress more casually. I walk in, I'm looking at the watch display, immediately a sales agent comes up to me, "Can I help you, sir?" I'm looking at the GMT Masters, I'm liking that new green bezel. I say to this fellow, he says, "Would you like to try it on, sir? I'll get it out for you." I said, "It's okay." At the time I was wearing a Pepsi GMT Master myself. I said, "I know exactly how they wear. I've got one on myself." But he was prepared to draw one out of the counter for me and let me try it on. And that's because it's the way I was dressed. Because I look like somebody who perhaps could afford that watch, merely because I'm wearing a jacket and a shirt, rather than a business uniform or a works uniform, they make an assumption and they treat me entirely differently as a consequence. So how can we weaponize this knowledge? How can we use the way that Steve was treated and the way I was treated to our positive mutual benefit in the future? Well, the secret is when you're going into a situation where you need to make an impression on somebody, you dress accordingly. And I know lots of people take issue with this. Every time I say this sort of thing, people say, "That is wrong. I wouldn't give that shop my business. I wouldn't have anything to do with any organization or business which treats me negatively just because I like to wear jogging bottoms and a hoodie as my perennial attire in every situation." Well, I don't take issue with that, sir or madam. I believe entirely that people should be treated equally, regardless of the way you're dressed. But the fact is, even though I believe it and you believe it, society is ingrained, hardwired to think differently and behave differently. When you go into that store, as I have done many times, I notice that the sales agents are always well dressed. They probably have a company dress code which says that the people working on the shop floor have to wear a suit, and they always do. And it is human nature, when you're dressed in a certain way, to be drawn towards people who dress the same. All right? This is why the military, the police services, the fire services, they have an instantly recognizable uniform, not just to show their enemy that they're different and their sort of their own side, but when you see somebody dressed the same way as you, it gives you comfort and you're drawn to them. You have something in common. This is why football fans wear the shirts of the teams that they support. It's that affiliation, that sense of connection. It's exactly the same when it comes to dressing in the casual world. If the sales agent is wearing a suit, and they probably are forced to wear a suit, they wouldn't want to wear one, but they see that as acknowledgement of that is the way that people are dressed, and those are the customers that that's their association. So if you walk in there wearing a suit, opposed to the chap who walks in wearing a hoodie and jogging trousers, they're going to gravitate to you because you are in effect wearing the same uniform as them. And you can weaponize that to positive effect. If you know you're going into the Rolex store and you want to put your name down for a hard to find watch, if you go in there with the jogging bottoms and that hoodie, it's not going to work, is it? Because that guy you're speaking to is wearing a suit, or the woman is wearing a suit. The female sales agents, they're wearing, a skirt suit. But if you go in there dressed similar to them, you don't have to wear a suit. You're going to look, if that's something you don't own, but certainly wear trousers, a jacket and a shirt so that you are perceivably better dressed than the ordinary man in the street, all right? They are going to afford you a very different service to everybody else. Unlike Steve, who went in quite rightly wearing his normal clothing, his works clothes, They afforded him a reduced service. But if he had gone in there wearing a suit, they would have jumped over themselves to help him. This is how society is. It's wrong, right? I accept it. I say it myself. But it's the situation that we have got to work with. So we learn how to weaponize it, and we learn to use it for our positive benefit. There ends my sermon today, really. I mean, it's just an example of somebody's experience and my own experience in the same shop, which were polar opposites because of the way we were dressed. Use it to your effect and benefit as you go through life. And don't forget, if you love watches, look up Red Bar. Certainly, if you go to the Bristol Red Bar event, you'll bump into me, because I think I've gone to all but one of their events since they've started the chapter in 2021. I'd love to see you. I'd love to see your watches and have a chat about your watch ideology too. So there we go, little plug for Red Bar. And again, more information about how we can dress well to make it work for us. Absolutely no doubt it makes a difference. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this quick-fire, short and snappy video, really. So until the next time, don't forget, if you've liked the video, thumbs up. If you want to see more, click the red button. If you want to practically support the channel, you can buy me a coffee, and the link for that's in the show notes below. And if you'd like to ask me a question or raise something to my attention, which you think would be useful to share with other people, by all means, slot that into the comment section or send me an email, and you'll find my email address in the About section on the main YouTube page. So until the next time, dress well to get the best service that you deserve in life. Until the next time, take care, and I will see you again very soon.